But anyway, we were talking about ribs and stuff.
I got to say one thing though about the women. Somebody asked me, this was several years ago, said, well, why, there's not any good old-fashioned heel managers? And I said, well, it's because, me and Paul Bear didn't look good in a bikini. That was basically
we didn't look good in anything. I know I didn't.
Actually, I think, maybe a nice short skirt.
Or you can't put icing in on a towel patty and make it be sweet. But like I said, as far as I've seen, and you have too, so many, and I get asked about ribs all the time, especially about the fans today. They want to know a lot of the behind-the-scenes stories and ribs and stuff. And the real good stuff, Jimmy, we can't tell. And other than we hate Kevin, the real good stuff, I can't tell because I can't point fingers, and people live in glass houses and throwing stones.
And also, sometimes it involves the people doing things they shouldn't be doing to begin with, so sometimes you can't tell.
And I'm not the angel.
But they got more complicated as time went on because it went from, and now almost nobody really ribs anybody.
No.
Because A, guys are all nervous, they're going to get in trouble. B, a lot of guys don't have the close connection they used to, so they'd really get mad. And C, nobody has time for it because they're too busy being miserable because it's all business now. But it got more complicated. It went from just the Steiners putting padlocks. One of the first TVs I made, the Steiners were already there. I'd been with them in WCW. I come back, my suit bag's hanging, Burlington, Vermont. Suit bag's hanging there, and I'm padlocked to the entire row of lockers. Right? So I got to find the bolt cutters. Simple rib. You'd see guys walking through the airport with 7, 8 heavy padlocks on their bag, adding an extra 15 pounds or whatever. Simple, the classics. Elegant, yet simple. But then it got more complicated. It got to where guys would start setting things up 3 days in advance and going buying props and having lookouts and swerving people. Doing something to somebody they didn't want to rib because they were going to rib the person they were ribbing the person they wanted to rib by doing something to somebody else because that person would think that it was them, and then they'd get back at them while the other person was. And finally, it got to be you had to keep a scorecard, and I got confused.
You remember when the Lawler first came in and said somebody shit in his crown?
I watched the door.
Percy, watch the door. What are you going to do? I'm going to take a shit in Jerry's crown. Oh, God, I was proud to stand in that door. You know who did it?
That was a fabulous thing to do, wasn't it?
Stephen Kern. Where's Steve Kern now? He's an agent for the WWE. He's shitting Jerry on his crown. I love Steve to death. He won't be mad at me telling the world, but the world probably already knows.
And I like the King, too, but let's face it. King,
it was great.
The King had shit in Kern's paycheck envelope for
Not
years.
just Kern. Not just Kern. Everybody. But it was things like that. And there's been a lot of poo-poo stories. Back to my friend Tammy Sitch. We were overseas in Germany.
Oh, I remember this one.
They were in the ring, and Sean Waltman decided he was going to poop in Tammy's poo-poo platter. We had Chinese. It was Chinese food, and
so it really kind of fit right in.
He poo-pooed, and I don't know what it was. It was kind of chicken and rice mixture, whatever the hell it was. And it did make us up containers.
Was there any corn involved?
And he did, and she went back to the hotel, and she ate it. And then it was great, because the next day we all got on the bus and everything, and of course, Tammy, did you like your poo-poo platter last night? And, oh, God, and that wasn't the only time. I also got to see Sean Waltman shit in Sable's bag. Not in her food, but in her luggage.
I would have paid ringside to be sitting there for that one.
It was the night before we were going home.
Now, didn't somebody else get blamed for that started another row? Because that's when Sable and Sonny having their deal at that point. I think somebody blamed Sonny for Sable's turd.
Sable hauled that shit. She carried that shit in her bag all the way to Atlanta. When I was in customs in Atlanta, he went,
but once again,
she didn't know the shit in her bag.
Nothing could have stunk worse than Sable's performances to begin with. So if she's carrying a turd around, it had to only smell like perfume next to her.
Lord have mercy. But the ribs like that, and like if I got, like back to what I was saying, if I was a victim of a rib, it was usually the Undertaker, and because they had so much fun, and I was so easy. But Taker never let nobody mess with me. I was lucky, like I said before, I was lucky there. But if I would do something, me and Taker, the first few years we were together all the time. We were inseparable, constantly together, and I'm not ashamed to admit I was his babysitter. But I was the highest paid babysitter you probably found around, and I had been in the business for quite a few years at that time, and I knew where my spot was. I was comfortable playing second banana and second fiddle, and that was my place. And So I made the hotel reservations, the car reservations, and I made sure that he was up on time, and we made the planes, and da-da-da-da-da. They would call me, Percy, we need to take her here, 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 and here, and here. And
we were managers to the extent, I mean, not shooting managers signing their checks and buying their stocks, but I did the same thing for the Express. As far as hotel reservations and try to call up and get the seats on the plane in advance or whatever the case may be to facilitate the moving around the country a little bit, rental cars, etc.
And Taker knew how anal I was. You know, he knew
because us anal managers.
I never ever would go to a town if I didn't have a car reservation, a hotel room reservation. Every town.
Don't leave the house.
And I would worry about that.
Yeah.
You know. I would have, sometimes we'd be on the road for a couple of weeks at a time, and I had everything set up, you know. And Lord help us, if somebody
twin sons of different mothers.
If somebody threw a wrench into that, if Ann Russo would come back on the office.
Oh yeah.
Oh Percy, we need y'all to in between here and there, we need y'all to go here to do this and that or whatever, you know. That just ruined everything. Because I had to go back and start from the beginning and rearrange everything, you know. And they would have you, oh, Percy, we canceled it. We're going back to the original thing.
Yeah.
And don't you think Mark Calloway, what behind that, tell Ann Russo to tell Percy we got to do this, this, and this. He's going to change all the shit up. And then call it back and say, no, we changed our mind. You don't have to go. Jesus Christ, I got to go back and do everything all over again. But it'd be stuff. I remember one time in particular, we were driving back from Vancouver, Canada, down to Tacoma, a Seattle area, and it was real cold. And I know you hate the cold weather as much as I've ever been a Southern boy. I had to pee so bad. Oh, God, and I couldn't let the Undertaker get out and pump gas at a gas station. You know, I just couldn't do it. Here's the Undertaker. I could not let that happen. And Mark knew
Undertaker
it. And don't think he didn't take advantage of that sometimes. So I had to pee so damn bad. Go pump the gas first and then go pee. And any of you men out there knows there's just something about holding a hose with water going through it that just makes it go worse. I'm standing there pumping gas going, oh my God, you know, oh, am I going to make it, you know? And all of a sudden a spot starts appearing on my pants, you know, a little dribble, you know, and I don't remember what color pants I had on.
The sign of things to come.
But you could see it, you know, and we're on the way to the building. So I peed my pants right. Anyway, I got through pumping gas. I went back and relieved myself. We're going to the building. I think it was Tacoma. I get to Tacoma, walk in the dressing room, and there's a present there, wrapped with a bow on it. I mean, this was an hour before that, where this pee incident happened. And I get to the dressing room. There's a bow with a tag. You know, Percy, what the hell is this? You know, open it up. It's a package of Depends from Vince McMahon. I couldn't fart unless Mark Calloway got on that damn phone and told Vince and Bruce and Pat and JJ, because they knew how I was, you know. Remember when I made the comeback with the big urn that had the big light in it? After Undertaker died and ascended into heaven, we started back at the United Center in Chicago, and they brought this big urn to me that had an airplane light. It was an airplane light, an airplane landing light, and it had a tremendous amount of batteries that had to power this. In fact, you had to plug it in the wall to charge it up. And it was heavy. It weighed like 50-something pounds. And
that's when Brian Lee was under Faker.
Yeah, we had the under Faker deal. So, okay, we used it for that thing. And I figured, I'm glad that's over. Vince goes, we want you to start carrying that to all the shows. So they gave me a case to put it in, and I waited at the airport. It weighed 78 pounds. I had to carry that to all the houses. So I'm not going to sell it right. So I go out and he buy me one of those luggage carts with the big wheels, you know. Yeah. And I just sit it on the luggage cart and I pull it through the airport and all that. I'm as easy as I can make it. I made it. And then before every show, I made sure I got out close to Vince as I could. I knew where his office was. And I'd get me some Brasso. And I'd sit out there and I'd shine that urn.
I remember seeing you.
I would shine that urn every show that Vince was at. And after a couple of weeks, they'd see I wasn't selling it. They didn't care anymore. And they let it go. But there's so many reasons. I've forgotten more than I can remember. But